There's something folks don't often say out loud, but many seniors feel in the quiet of their days. Why do some people live so long, even when they no longer find joy? The body endures, the years pass, but the soul seems trapped in a routine of pain, loneliness, or limitations. This isn't punishment, but it's not random either. Some wonder if there's a meaning behind this suffering longevity. Doctors talk about genetics, about taking care of your health, but there's a deeper dimension that rarely comes up in conversation, and when it does, it's almost always with fear or taboo. Dolores Cannon, a researcher of between-lives experiences, brought a little-known perspective that can shed light on this often forgotten question. Because time, when extended, doesn't always mean a privilege. Sometimes it's a calling, an invitation from the soul to complete something left unfinished. The truth is, many live beyond what they thought they could bear, and when that happens, a strange feeling of displacement arises, as if time is no longer yours. Dolores Cannon used to say that there are spiritual contracts that we don't follow to the letter, and that's why we're called to stay a little longer. It's not punishment, but rather a readjustment. There are lessons that only mature slowly. And there are souls that need, in this final cycle, to adjust feelings, repair relationships, or accept what they've spent a lifetime trying to control. If you've ever wondered why your life has extended beyond enthusiasm, perhaps you're living your soul's last lesson. If this topic touches you in any way, subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. Let's seek answers together that respect your time, your story, and everything that still pulses within you. Dolores observed that not every soul that ages is suffering by chance. There are silent missions happening in every bed, in every rocking chair, in every distant gaze. The spirit, according to her, doesn't see time the way we do. What we call delay, it understands as opportunity. Sometimes a single conversation, a postponed forgiveness, a deep acceptance of one's own life is enough to close a cycle with lightness. But until that happens, the body remains as an instrument of experience. Life goes on not because medicine prolongs it, but because the soul still needs to learn something. Sometimes that something is simple, but it requires surrender, and surrender is what frightens most. Many struggle to maintain control when what the soul wants is to let go. And letting go in this context means reconciling with one's own journey, accepting that perhaps the choices we deem wrong were the only possible ones with what we knew at the time. Dolores said that the soul doesn't judge, it understands, and that understanding for many seniors only happens when there are no more distractions, commitments, or rushing around. Time slows down so that consciousness can observe everything with clarity. Living longer, even with limitations, can be the last chance to love without hurry, to forgive with sincerity, to appreciate what once seemed ordinary. None of this is imposed, but all of this is available, like a half-open door waiting to be noticed. That's why some remain, because there's still something that can only be done in the time of silence. It's not about deserving or punishment. It's about spiritual journey. Dolores Cannon believed that life plans are sketched out before birth, with freedom for adjustments. But when we deviate too much from what was agreed upon with our higher consciousness, life gives us extra time. And that time, although often lonely, can be deeply transformative. There's no delay, there's extension, and that extension has purpose. The problem is that we rarely talk about it with our parents, grandparents, or with ourselves. We prefer to see aging only as a decline, when it can be a sacred ending. It's not too late to understand that even pain has a message, and that every morning can still be a chance to conclude what began a long time ago, perhaps in another life. Dolores' spiritual view invites an uncomfortable question. What if the pain you feel now is a way for the soul to get your attention? Not to suffer, but to look at what was ignored. An old resentment, a grievance that seems small, but is trapped like an invisible knot. An apology that was never made but still echoes. The body feels what the soul carries. That's why certain diseases arise over the years, not only as a biological result, but as reflections of emotions that were never embraced. Dolores saw this as an opportunity. Each pain, each limitation, each difficulty can be the beginning of a deeper healing. But that healing requires courage to look inward, and time, however long it may seem, only becomes light when there is acceptance. Over the years, many find themselves surrounded by silence. Children grow up, friends pass away, the routine becomes simpler and at the same time emptier. But it's precisely in that space that the soul begins to speak louder. Dolores Cannon explained that the spirit takes advantage of this phase of recollection to work on more subtle lessons, things that perhaps wouldn't fit into the busy pace of previous decades. Silence isn't absence, but openness, and it's in that openness that the soul can show what still needs to be resolved. It may be a regret, it may be a resistance, it may be an unmade decision. Everyone carries their unfinished business, and that's why aging is never the same for everyone. Some live long to take care of someone, some stay longer to be taken care of. But in all cases, there's always something being refined inside. The body, even tired, continues as a messenger of these unresolved issues. When it hurts, it's showing that there's something that needs attention. Dolores didn't see suffering as punishment, but as a way to make consciousness awaken, and consciousness only awakens when it stops running away. It's not easy to face certain truths when you have more past than future, but perhaps that's where the opportunity lies. Some seniors report memories that come back strongly, repetitive dreams, longings that hurt more than before. These are all signs. The soul is trying to reorganize what is still misaligned, and for that, it needs the person to be present, even with pain, even with limitations, because only what is faced can be healed, and time at this point is an ally, not a burden. Many believe that it's enough to wait for death, as if it were an automatic relief. But Dolores Cannon saw the end of life as a crossing that is only fully completed when the soul is at peace. And that peace doesn't come from forgetting, but from acceptance. Accepting who was, who is, and what wasn't possible to be. Accepting that we don't have control over everything, and that this doesn't make us weak, just human. When the elderly person understands this, something changes. Even without physical healing, there can be inner healing. Even without more goals, there can be meaning. There are seniors who shine in their eyes, even in the face of finitude, because they have understood that living long is more than just enduring. It's taking advantage of the extra time to be whole, even if for the first time. And that wholeness is what frees the most. Dolores said that there are souls who ask to live longer, even without consciously remembering it. They ask because they want to close a cycle with spiritual dignity. They don't want to carry the same burdens into the next journey. And that's why, sometimes, suffering is prolonged, because the soul is trying to show that there's still something important to be done, even if small. A call, a letter, an apology, a memory revisited with tenderness. Longevity in these cases is like a second chance, not to change the past, but to change the view of it. And that, for the soul, has immense value. When a person allows themselves this loving review of their own history, something dissolves. And with that often comes serenity, the one that prepares the spirit to depart without fear. Living too long, then, isn't always a coincidence. It can be a final and rare opportunity to end the journey with wisdom. Dolores Cannon didn't romanticize aging, but saw it as an essential stage of the soul, a space of revelation. And these revelations don't always come with beautiful words or moments of illumination. Sometimes they come in a simple gesture, like holding the hand of someone who has been hurt, or in allowing oneself to cry for something that has been repressed for decades. Each person has their story, and each story has its right time to complete itself. There are seniors who feel they have already accomplished everything, but still remain here. And it is in that time beyond the planned that the spirit acts with more force, because what remains is essential, and the essential is almost always invisible to hurried eyes. Most people don't want to think about it. It's easier to believe that everything has a medical explanation, or that time is extended by luck or misfortune. But there's something more. Dolores reminded us that deep down, the soul knows what it needs. And when the body remains, even with frailty, it's because there's something unsaid, unlived, or misunderstood. Life insists, when the soul hasn't finished its work, this isn't cruel, it's profound. Because if time were interrupted before its time, something precious would be lost. It's necessary to respect this insistence of life. Instead of asking why you're still here, Perhaps the wisest thing is to ask what you're still here for. The answer, when it comes, doesn't require big words. Just an internal recognition that there's still something to offer, to heal, or simply to feel. It's common to hear that some seniors are just waiting for their time to go, as if there's nothing left to do. But Dolores Cannon suggested that if we're still here, there's a purpose pulsing, even if discreet. Maybe what's left isn't to do something grandiose, but simply to live with presence. To be there, in the simple breakfast, in the touch of sunlight on the window, in the smile when seeing a family member. The soul doesn't need great deeds to be complete, it needs truth. And truth appears when we surrender body and soul to the now. Many seniors don't realize it, but they are a source of healing for those around them. Their presence, their stories, their gestures teach more than any book. And that, in itself, may already justify a life that extends beyond what was expected. When a senior listens attentively, they embrace. When they share a memory with sincerity, they teach. Dolores saw this as a valuable spiritual exchange. Even if the person no longer walks easily or depends on daily care, their soul remains active, working on deep levels. It's not the body that defines someone's usefulness, it's how much that presence touches others. Many seniors help the family heal traumas, even without knowing it. They are the foundation where children and grandchildren lean on to move forward. And sometimes, their permanence prevents hasty choices by those who come after. Life doesn't make mistakes with timing. It continues because there's more to be experienced, even if it's just the silence of an afternoon shared with someone who needs company. That's also a mission. And it's a big one. This mission isn't always perceived clearly. Physical or emotional suffering can cloud the soul's vision. Dolores said that in many cases, pain serves to remove distractions, forcing the person to look inward, not as punishment, but as guidance. When everything around is reduced, what remains is the essential, and that essential often challenges us. It's difficult to accept that we no longer control our own body. It's hard to need help with simple things, but it's in that stripping away that the soul finds space to reveal itself. Identity goes beyond what we can do. It's in what we are even when we don't do anything anymore. Knowing this can transform the way we face the last years, not as decline, but as a revelation of all that we were and can still be. The final time of life is also the most sincere time. In it, there's no room for masks nor justifications. Only what is true remains. Dolores Cannon emphasized that many souls choose to incarnate in long trajectories precisely to experience this process of detachment. A learning that's only possible when the ego is already tired of fighting, when there's finally space to listen to the soul. And the soul doesn't shout, it whispers. It says that everything is okay, even if it seems wrong, that the past is already gone, and that the now is enough. Those questions that we always push to later arise with force. What did I fail to live? Who do I need to forgive? What can I still do for myself, even if it seems small? These questions aren't fragile, they are keys. And each answer can open a door. There are people who leave young because they fulfilled their mission earlier, and there are others who stay far beyond what they imagined because there's still something delicate and important open. Dolores Cannon saw beauty in this. The spirit isn't in a hurry, it wants to understand, integrate, learn. And if that requires more years of life, even with limitations, the soul accepts. But it also expects the person, here in the material world, to accept along with it, to see meaning where there seems to be only repetition, to perceive value where everything seems to be fatigue. Living longer isn't punishment. It's a rare chance to end everything in peace. And peace only comes when there is understanding. Understanding of what was lived, of what didn't work out, of what still pulses even with the body saying enough. This is the time of surrender. And surrender is the most dignified ending, but we can't always do that alone. Dolores reminded us that emotional support, affection, and listening are essential tools in this finalization process. A senior who is listened to feels that they still matter. A person who is touched with respect feels that they are still alive. And that's powerful. The final years don't have to be a desert of silence. They can be a harvest of everything that has been planted. Even if the fruits are different from what was expected, they are still fruits. The gaze of the other when it comes with love can help the soul recognize its own value. And that recognition is what heals the most. Sometimes, all that's missing for a cycle to end is someone to say that everything is all right, that the journey was dignified, that each step, even stumbled, made sense. This reconciles the soul with time. When a senior is embraced in their entirety, something transforms. Dolores Cannon saw aging as a stage in which the soul no longer seeks external conquests, but internal reconciliations. And this can be done in silence, in prayer, in memories that finally receive understanding. It's in that intimate space that spirituality manifests itself more concretely. It's not about religion, it's about consciousness, knowing that each day still has value, that even without great movements, the soul continues to express itself. Each word spoken with affection, each memory that awakens a smile, each forgiveness that arrives without demands, are healings happening. And for many elderly people, that's all that's missing. A space where they can exist with dignity, with meaning, with presence. And that's worth more than any treatment. Dolores Cannon's vision helps us understand that there's no wasted time when there's a spiritual purpose. Even if the family, friends, or even the senior themselves don't see meaning, the soul knows what it's doing. Living a long time, even with limitations, can be the most delicate way that life has found to close what was left open. A cycle only closes truly when there is understanding. And understanding requires time. There's no rushing this process. Everyone has their own rhythm, their own moment to perceive. The most important thing is not to fall into the illusion that life has emptied. As long as there is breath, there is room for transformation. As long as there is consciousness, there is what to be integrated, and that integration, even if silent, has a profound impact that goes beyond this existence. Many family members don't understand this final time. They see the senior only through the limitation, forgetting the spiritual depth that they carry. Dolores insisted that respect for the soul is as important as care for the body. Looking into the eyes, listening without haste, treating with tenderness. This isn't charity, it's recognition. Each senior is a universe of experiences, emotions, and learnings. And when someone approaches with genuine interest, the soul responds. Even without words, even without lucidity, something inside still feels. And that feeling is sacred. The affectionate presence of the caregiver can be the thread that was missing to tie together the loose pieces of a whole life. Embracing a senior is also embracing their soul, with all that it represents, even what was never said. Dolores Cannon invites us to reflect on what we haven't done yet. Not to blame ourselves, but to raise awareness. If you are a senior, perhaps your soul is just waiting for a gesture, a choice, an acceptance. If you live with someone elderly, perhaps it's time to offer presence, listening, and love, because that has a spiritual value that cannot be measured. Living too long may seem strange, even unfair, but when seen through the lens of the soul, it reveals itself as a rare privilege of conscious closure. And each person who understands this transforms the way they live their days. Time is not the enemy. It's the instrument that life uses so that nothing is left incomplete. And when everything is complete, the soul can finally move on lightly, without fear, without pending issues. Facing this vision requires courage. Not everyone wants to look at life with this depth, but those who accept this invitation find meaning even in pain, even in waiting. Dolores Cannon said that there's wisdom in the final years, but it's necessary to listen with the heart. The soul doesn't shout, it waits. And when it realizes that it has been heard, something quiets down inside. The revolt gives way to understanding. Fear gives way to acceptance. Life, even long, ceases to be seen as punishment and begins to be recognized as a crossing that can be done with dignity, with humanity, and above all with consciousness. And that consciousness is the greatest gift that can be taken beyond the body. It's that which frees us. It's that which ends the journey with peace. If this video brought reflection to you, consider sharing it with someone who needs to hear this message. Sometimes a simple conversation can open doors to profound understandings. And if you want to continue receiving content like this, subscribe to the channel. This space is made with respect for your story, your wisdom, and your time. because every life matters, and each stage of it carries a meaning that deserves to be recognized. Thank you for staying until here. May your next hours, days, or years be lived with consciousness, presence, and lightness. The journey continues even when it seems to end, and everything that is lived with truth leaves a mark that transcends time.